Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of The Long Walk. Joining alongside me today on this really short walk that we're going to be taking today because I saw how long this walk was and I'll be honest with you, none of it do I want to do. I will do a very short walk. I'll do a medium walk if I need to, but this is way too long of a walk. But again, joining alongside me, number 3, Daniel Baptista. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. That was a long intro, though. I'll be honest. I'm like, dude, just you get to us. Get to it. You could do it. You could do it. Keep your pace. Don't drop the pace. We will get there together. And now we're here. We made it. So we're okay.
Yeah, of course. We had to be here because, if we don't, then Anthony will kill us because he's actually the major. You're not even the walking.
No, I'm not.
You're the major. You're the no. Number 10, Anthony. How you doing, man?
Wait, is that the number I finish in this competition, or is that
No,
just...
I go based on the date of birth.
the little. Okay, yes, okay, I take that.
Yeah,
because I don't want to die.
No.
But I'm doing.
You probably will though.
But you know what? You see, in the beginning of this conversation, you said I don't like taking walks. I feel like you went on the longest walk a couple of months ago, and it was.
I'm not gonna lie, I did. But even then, like the length of the walk that I did when I went for Hajj was so minor compared to when I was calculating these miles to kilometers. I'm like, yeah, kill me. Just they were past 600 kilometers at a certain point.
Yeah, but you also, had the ability to sleep and eat.
I did, and I could stop. And guess what? I didn't have to go 3 miles per hour while doing this walk.
No, you did not. I wonder how you would have performed differently, Shahbaz, had you had seen this movie first or read the book, and you would have been like, okay, you know what? I got to keep 3 miles per hour pace while I'm on it.
Well, while watching this movie, I was like, I get it. I relate to these guys. I get what
I live this.
I get what they're going through.
Live this.
God, mile 3, I was the exact same. I was puking as well. Man,
God.
We're talking about a movie that we've had the opportunity to see a little bit of during our Comic-Con experience earlier this year, or really just last month, I guess if you really think about it. And now we've seen the whole film. We've seen it all. They didn't cut out all the blood and violence. They got to show it all to us. And that is a huge, huge thank you to our friends over at Cineplex Pictures for inviting us to come watch this movie. Because, yeah, like, wow, what an experience that was. Like, how are you guys feeling after this walk? Would you guys do this walk?
No, I would not do this walk, Shay. Like, there's not even... Listen, I know... So the premise, you get to go on a walk... However 50 kids start or 50 guys start, and then if you're the last person standing, you get whatever wish you want, and then whatever riches that they put upon you. I wouldn't want to. I love walking, but I also enjoy resting and being able to eat and not have to walk with broken ankles and bloody feet.
Not a fan of that.
All that stuff. So
yeah.
At the end of the day, like I know we were all kind of talking about it afterwards. I'm like, I'd probably be okay just sitting at home and living in my squalor of being poor.
The movie we're talking about today is The Long Walk, which is directed by Hunger Games director Francis Lawrence. So very similar themes we're kind of getting here, which is very, very unique and it's very cool. It's nice to see this dystopian kind of lottery where you die. A lot of YA dying that he must love directing. So good on you, Mr. Francis Lawrence. And this is based on the book by Stephen King, starring Cooper Hoffman and David Jonsson. David Jonsson, who we first got introduced to him with Alien Romulus. What a scene-stealing performance that was by him. And really kind of getting to this film now, it's just like, man, I'm really excited for whatever he starts to do next because, I'll definitely be there. Long Walk will be exclusively in theaters September 12th. We are right now in the middle of TIFF because when this episode has dropped, we're TIFFing it out. You may have already seen or heard some of our TIFF reviews that are out there. I can't tell you which ones because we haven't recorded them yet. Spoiler for when this is being recorded. But it's all happening. The magic of The Long Walk is happening right now. Anthony is working his video editing skills. Daniel is fine-tuning the audio while you're listening. It's like on the fly that this is happening. If people had our podcast while going for the long walk, they would probably have killed themselves instead of letting the soldiers do it. They would just run off the side and be like, just take me. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. As soon as it starts, hello and welcome. No. To each other.
Gosh. Awful. Awful. But let's get into our first reactions for The Long Walk. Daniel, please take us on a stroll.
We'll go on a stroll. We first saw the trailer for this going back to CinemaCon, and I remember, sitting there with that trailer and being really excited. I'm a fan of Stephen King. I think the big thing with being a Stephen King fan is being okay with the endings not always being the strongest, but it's the journey, right? And it's the journey of what these characters go on. And I think that's what I love so much about The Long Walk, is that you are going to fall in love with the journey that they go on. And I think this is a film that is carried by Cooper Hoffman and by David Jonsson. You have a great cast around them. So when they are going on this long ass walk, and as Shay said, for us in Canada,
that was the original name of the film, I think.
Yeah.
The Long Ass Walk.
The Long Ass Walk. It's like over 600 kilometers, right? Like 500 miles. Like they are going on an obscene journey. And I think what's so fun about watching this is like I'm watching this almost like it's the Hunger Games. It feels like it's like Lord of the Flies. It feels like that type of film that kids would watch in, later, maybe 14 to 16-year-olds watching this and just be like, this film is going to become my personality. And I felt that when I watched Lord of the Flies for the first time. And I felt that when I was watching The Hunger Games. I felt that a lot in The Long Walk. And I think this was a gorgeous looking movie. I think the pace, pun intended, is really strong for a story that's being told over so many miles and so many different areas. The entire time I was gripped because I wanted to know what was happening. And I told you guys that I got the vibes a little bit of Lord of the Rings while watching this, because you have these characters going on what feels like an impossible journey, and all they have is each other and the bonds that they are building on this journey. They know not all of them are going to make it to the end, but it's those relationships and those factions that are built throughout The Long Walk that you really fall in love with. And obviously I already mentioned Cooper and David, Garrett and Joshua, also fantastic, and Ben Wang, who I think brings a lot of comic relief to this, who we saw earlier this year in Karate Kid Legends. He's really fun, and I think you get to really understand who these characters are. Yeah, there's a little bit of an archetype to which kind of role each of them are playing, but you need that in a story like this to really get the themes across. And I really like that. And like I said, there are some gorgeous looking shots in this film. And for a movie that's shot in Winnipeg and shot, I think, in Saskatchewan, where you are just following a long road, you could probably, assume that this is going to be a boring movie. And I don't think that's the case. This movie leans into the violence. It's not a gore fest, but when it does shock you with violence, it uses those moments very impactfully. And you are left in shock in a lot of how, I think, gruesome this film could be. And, when we were at Comic-Con, they showed us the first 15 or 20 minutes and they cut out. They're like, listen, we can't show because, there's kids here. And we're just like, how bad could it be? When that first kill happens, it sets the fucking tone for everything that is to follow in this film. I will say, and we'll talk about it probably a little bit later as my final little thought here, I think the weakest part of this film is Mark Hamill. And that's not because of necessarily his performance, because he's just being that hard-ass general the whole time. I just don't think we were ever really given enough to really hate this guy, other than him just being, there popping up a couple times to give orders. You're not given a lot to hate him to really feel like he's the one behind this. So when things kind of happen later on in the film, you're like, is he the source of the problem, or is he just a figure that will be replaced afterwards? That's the kind of thing. That's kind of where I'm at, which we'll talk about more with our later thoughts on it. Obviously, we'll stay spoiler free, but yeah, I really, really enjoy The Long Walk, and I think it's one of those films that a lot of, I think, younger adults especially should watch, because I think there's some great themes there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you when it comes to Mark Hamill's performance. I think as a whole, it's just very forgettable. A lot of what he's doing is just lines out of a video game.
One note.
Very, very PS2, PS3 era of just like, you want to get down here, maggot, and it's just like, cool. And there's a moment where they're all just yelling at it. They're like, shut the fuck up, Major, shut up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm right there with you guys. Like, seriously, you are inconsequential.
But I wanted to see a reaction to that too, right?
And nothing.
And I wanted
there was
some consequences for that, right? So
yeah.
It's some interesting, I think, just choices with the general overall. And again, with a film that is taking a lot of, liberties with the source material, I think you could have made him a lot more of an antagonist throughout this to really make that walk challenging.
It's interesting because it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of like, let's keep up, let's keep going. And I felt like that conversation could have been directed to the Major and having him be the antagonist and understanding what the reasoning that they're on this walk for, why he believes in the walk. And I think that just having that dynamic between the two groups of people, these soldiers who they're presented in such a inhumane way, like they'll just kill you if you just stop walking, right? And there's no humanity. I want to know why, and I think that's where we could have had that dialogue, where I felt like the dialogue in this whole film was a little repetitive because the conversations that they're having is very similar to the first conversation of let's just keep walking. I do think Cooper and David have the best chemistry on screen in this film. Like, I think their brotherly love and their connection just works so well. But I felt like that conversation of the grand scheme of what this walk is could have been held by the Major being this antagonist and why he wants, or why they hold this walk every year. So I think that's a big part of the movie where I felt like they could have, yes, they're adapting this book, but they could have had a free roam of telling a different story. Because again, it's 1970. I don't know how many people are fandoms of the Long Walk, but it's just something that you could have played around with. But I think the overall story is fascinating. It dives into like oppression. It dives into that dystopian feeling. It also feels like a story from the late 70s when this book came out, because it seems like it's just the social commentary of what the world was like after, I guess, the Vietnam War in the States. So there's a lot of things that they've planted in this movie that might not translate well, but I think it still has like an impactful meaning. The feeling of not being in control of your life and having to do this walk, or the pressure of just being poor and having to deal with all that type of stuff. So there are things that still relate to this day. But yeah, the violence in this film is absolutely wild at times. And just like, man, like, I hope the riches are worth it, because it's not worth going through that amount of pain. There are some disturbing scenes that just will rock you.
Yeah, I think every couple marker that came up, like mile 38, we're like, no, wouldn't be me.
No,
wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be doing this. There's a lot in this movie that I really, really loved. Like you guys are talking about, there's just so much about it that I'm like, that looks great. That feels great. These characters are awesome. But I think when you look back at some of the issues that this film has, which is, your main villain, as Mark Hamill, not very enticing, doesn't do much. And I think when you look back at the dialogue, even though a lot of it does help kind of bridge and connect us to these characters and let us know more about them and their bond, like Anthony, you're saying, it gets so repetitive sometimes that you're like, you can easily shave like 10 minutes off this movie, bring it down to a cool 90, and we're kind of good to go from there. But again, it's you're there for the journey of this film. You're there to see these characters get from point A to point B. Does the ending hit the mark? I don't think for me it did. I think the ending, very much like Stephen King, you're just kind of like, okay, even though it's not the adaptation of the ending from the book, you're still kind of like, yeah, it's fine. Like there was moments where we were like, oh, if they had ended it right there, it would have been so perfect. It would have left so much more to the imagination. But because they kind of kept going and showing us a little bit more, in fact, all it did was just raise more questions instead of letting us fill in the blanks. But the performances are fantastic. I really loved the score for the movie as well. I'm actually not sure who did the score, but I can pull it up here in 30.2 seconds, maybe even less than 30.2 seconds. It's Jeremiah Freites. Freites?
Yeah, Jeremiah Freites.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was going to guess did the music for this film, because obviously he's done it for the Hunger Games. So Mr.
Jeremiah Freites is also one of the members of the Lumineers.
Great band.
Very
They
cool.
have that that tambourine song is really, really good, right?
not in this movie though. No,
Not in this movie.
tambourines in this movie.
I feel like there was a
You know what?
tambourine.
There was definitely some tambourines. It's a very 70s instrument.
Yeah, it is. We'll have to listen out.
We'll have
for
to
it
listen to the
next time.
screams again.
But yeah, Shay, you mentioned the ending of this film, and obviously we're not going to tell you what happens at the end of this movie.
Just do it.
But
Just tell them the
I'm
ending.
reminded of listen, guys. Right at the end of this movie.
Mark Hamill wins.
No, there's one of those things that we always call like the "sell me this pen" ending, where for longtime listeners of the show we've brought this reference up before, where the ending of Wolf of Wall Street, if you ended the Wolf of Wall Street with him just saying "sell me this pen," cut to credits, there's like this surge of adrenaline where you're just like like he's always kind of been this guy, and it's a little bit more of a like again that's a whole other conversation. But there's a lot of endings of films that just hit really hard when you cut to black after a character says a line. And I think there would have been a really impactful ending to this film to see how characters have changed and how ideologies have changed. But because the scene kind of keeps going on and nothing's left to the imagination, as Shahbaz has said, you're just like, okay, that's kind of where we are now. And, you're kind of left with a little bit more of a, like, oh, I don't have to think about this now. And I think when you're leaving a movie, you kind of want to leave thinking about it, where this movie kind of thinks for you at the end, where you're not left with the reason to think about it anymore. And again, I think the big thing with this film is that it's the journey you're watching. It's not really the destination that you are getting the message from. So that's kind of one of the big issues with this film, I think.
I think you talk about the "sell me this pen" ending, and then you look at an ending of A Quiet Place Part 1 where shotgun cocks back, and then that's it, cut to black. Like, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And we can fill in the blanks as the viewers. So, yeah, I mean, again, even though they made a part 2.
That's why I'm laughing, because I'm like, even though part 2 takes place.
Yeah,
right
we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Yeah. Or The Last of Us, part 1. Oh shit! No, wait, part 2 came out too. But again, different book. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, again, we talk about it that the performances are great, the music is great. There's weakness definitely in some elements of these characters that we kind of get here and there. But overall, I think it's a great journey.
Yeah, I think at the end of it all, you think about like, how do you live your life after something like that? You know what I mean? Like, after you've gone on a journey like that and you've seen the things that you've seen, how do you go on living after that? And I think
you're a changed person. You've seen people die, on like,
like in the most brutal of ways. You've done a walk that only you and, other people have. The only other people in your kind of that you'll connect to are other people the survivors of who've done it in previous years. So it's
you spent like 100 hours with these people.
You're not bonded with them,
no.
Right? But you're not bonded with them. You're bonded with the ones that you've lost, right?
I haven't spent 100 hours with you guys.
I think we have. I think this is 100 hours right now. Today marks 100 hours. I think when you have a traumatic experience with someone, that's a different type of bond, and you have it over and over again. Plus the feeling of this might be my last thing I do. It's quick. It's interesting. And these are the questions that make this movie really good to watch. Like, these are the questions that come out and say, yeah, like, a conversation with a stranger at the end of it, you might be bonded for life.
Well, let's stop walking. And also let's stop talking and get into our final recommendations for The Long Walk. Anthony, how many miles do you give this movie?
I give it 5,000 miles, which is a good thing.
That's a lot of miles, dude.
Is less miles a good thing? So you just die quicker, or more miles, but it's a long, I don't know. But I think it's a watch. I think it's a movie that you should experience on the big screen. Definitely. I think there are things in this movie that just have there's a lot of iconic looking scenes in this movie that I was just picturing in the future. Like, oh, this would be like a really cool looking sequence that the people will like kind of relate back to and say, you remember that scene? Just because of the cinematography and because it's this long road, a lot of depth behind you. So it's a lot of blurred out background. And Lawrence really focused on like just the heads, like just upper body. So it's like this really long shot behind them. And there's things that happen behind them that are pretty tragic. But I think visually it's fantastic. Story-wise, yeah, I have my issues with it, but I still think it's a movie that will have you thinking about the world that you currently live in and the world that, Stephen King wrote at that time and the conversations that come from it. But yeah, it's a definite watch it.
I'm going to watch it as well. I think Francis has made a great film. I like this a lot more than the last Hunger Games from The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes. And I think he's at his best when he really leans into the themes of, the novels and the stories that he's adapting. We've had a lot of Stephen King adaptations in the last year. We had The Monkey, we had The Life of Chuck, we have The Running Man coming later this year. Now we have The Long Walk. I feel like I'm probably missing something in
Salem's
between.
Lot.
There's a lot of films. Salem's Lot last year, and yeah, there's been a lot. But again, there's an endearing feeling to a lot of his stories. And I think about The Lord of the Flies, which isn't his, but I think about movies like Stand By Me, which is his, and the movies that you really see the bonds that these characters go on, like in It and so many others. I think Cooper and David are just fantastic together in this. I wish there was a stronger antagonist. I really do. And I think if we did have a stronger antagonist, we wouldn't be left with some of the more questions about the world. We'd be focused on the questions about the themes of the film and whether or not we could actually endure something like this or, even think about something like this happening in our world. But I think I really did like this film. Even though there are some issues with the ending, I will be remembering the journey of this movie. And I'm excited to show people this movie too. So I definitely say go watch it in the theater. It's a really good time.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I think it's to watch it. There's a lot of entertaining moments, especially when you're going on this journey with these characters. You really fall in love with them as well. Even the ones that you're not supposed to like, you somehow kind of feel like there's redemption to them, or you understand why they get to where they get to. Weak villain aside, weak ending aside, the journey is still one of the best parts about this film. The intensity is one of the best parts about this film. And you sometimes can't predict where it's going to go. And that's kind of what keeps you on your toes. Huge shout out to our friends again at Cineplex Pictures for inviting us to watch this movie. Thank you so much. And of course, if you're new to the movie podcast, our show notes down below have all the information. If you want to know more about TIFF, you don't want to know what TIFF is, it's not someone named Tiffany, then definitely give that link down there below all the reading that you possibly can, because you can join our Discord as well and talk to us about movies like this one. Talk to us about TV shows. September's coming around, or actually is around, because this is September. That's what I meant to say. This is September right now. And,
this is the long outro.
This is the long outro. We are getting into the Oscar season of film. So a lot of wicked and really good movies coming out. And Anthony's pointing his guns at us right now. I'm getting 3 warnings.
You have two warnings right now.
2 warnings and you already pointed a gun?
Yeah. I said the first one, I said in my head. Like when
oh, that doesn't count.
It was a thoughtful warning. It was a thought.
You're going to die anyway, so.
Damn.
That's the one guarantee in life.
We're all going to die. And just like that, that was this time with the movie podcast, and we'll see you next.